Multiplying Binomials, Part 1. In today's lesson, students will learn how to multiply binomials by using the FOIL method. By using what? The FOIL method. Very good. Now we know that when we see parentheses, these tell us to do what? You hold up your finger in the air and you go like this. You say distribute, multiply. So the term for this number we know is a coefficient, right? Well, technically, because there's only one term, because 6 is by itself, that's called a monomial. Repeat after me, say monomial. That means one term. In the parentheses, we see the quantity of x plus 2, right? How many terms are in x plus 2? You have x and you have 2. So how many terms? You have 2 terms. So you call that a binomial. What do you call it? A binomial. Binomial means 2. So we are used to multiplying a monomial by a binomial by distributing, right? So if you were to multiply or distribute, you would get, well, 6 times x and 6 times 2. That's the wave, right? So 6 times x, put them together. When they touch, they're being multiplied. They make 6x. And then you have 6 times 2, which is, what's 6 times 2? 6 times 2 is 12. Okay? So when you distribute the 6, you get 6x plus 12. Now let's look at what happens when you multiply 2 binomials together. So what happens when you have a binomial and you're multiplying it by another binomial? Okay? Binomial means 2 terms. So you're going to have an x and you'll have a coefficient. So when you multiply binomials, okay, you do have to distribute, but you do it using FOIL. So it's F-O-I-L. Okay? So FOIL is a method of distribution, and it tells you which terms you're going to multiply. So when you distribute or you multiply, step number 1 is doing the first terms. Okay, first. That's what F stands for. So the first terms are going to be the first term in this binomial and the first term in this binomial, which would be x times x. Okay? Next, you're going to do the outer terms. Okay, that's step number 2. The outer terms are actually going to also start with x. Okay? But this is going to be the outer term on the left-hand side and then the outer term over here. Those are the outer terms. So you'll multiply, for example, x times 3. Those are the outer terms. Okay? Step number 3 is to multiply the inner terms. Inner terms. The inner terms are on the inside when you're multiplying. Okay? So the inner terms are here. This would be 2 times x. Those are the inner terms. Okay? And finally, the 4th step is to multiply the last terms together. Okay? Last terms. So the last terms are going to be the last term in this binomial, which is 2, and the last term here. So I'm going to go ahead and put an L for last. So this is the last term, 2 times 3. Okay? So go ahead and write those letters for me on top or underneath this expression. Okay, so now we see 2 sets of parentheses, and inside there are 2 terms, which means this is a binomial. And is this a binomial? Yes. So in order to distribute, you actually have 4 steps, and they are called FOIL. So it's F-O-I-L. What is it? F-O-I-L, which it spells foil, right? So we take a look at what those letters mean. So first we look at the letter F. And F means first you're going to distribute or you're going to multiply the first terms. Okay, the first term in each binomial. So let's go ahead and do that. let's go ahead and say, what is x times x? Now remember, is there an invisible exponent next to the x? It's the invisible 1, right? So if there's an invisible 1 here and an invisible 1 here, when you do x times x, when you multiply exponents, you have to add, right? When you multiply exponents, you have to add. So what's 1 plus 1? 1 plus 1 is 2. So that's going to be x squared, okay? X squared. Okay, so the next step is to do O, which is the outer terms. So we're going to rewrite these two binomials. It's going to be x plus 2 times x plus 4. Okay. So the outer terms are going to be the terms on the outside, okay? So the term that's on the outside to the right and to the left. So let's underline those. These are the outer terms. So x and 4 are the outer terms. When you think about, well, what is x times 4 if I were to distribute? What is x times 4? If they touch, they're being multiplied. So just put them together, and that makes what? That makes 4x. Very good. The next step in FOIL is I. Okay? I stands for the inner terms. Inner terms. So let me show you what that looks like. If you go ahead and rewrite this one more time, because you're going to write it 4 times. The inner terms are the ones that are on the inside. So we're going to go ahead and make the distribute wave underneath. And I'm going to ask you, what is 2 times x? 2 times x is what? 2 times x is, make them touch, it's 2x. Okay. And the last step in FOIL is L, which means the last terms. Okay. So we have x plus 2 and x plus 4. Okay. So the last terms are going to be the term that is last in this binomial and last in this binomial. So you're really talking about the 2 times 4. Okay, 2 times 4. So let's underline those, 2 times 4. So what is 2 times 4? 2 times 4 is 8. Very good. 2 times 4 is 8. Okay, so now what we need to do is, because all of these, we're going to take a look at all of these now on this side, and we're going to put a box around them. Okay, now these are written vertically, and technically because they're all positive, you could put a plus sign in front of all of them. Now, the only one you don't want to put a plus sign in front of is x squared, okay? So let's go ahead and put plus signs in front of 4x. Let's put a plus sign in front of 2x and in front of 8. All right, good. So now what we're doing is we're adding, but remember that we can only combine like terms. Remember, combine like terms. So they have to have the same last name. Now, x squared, is there another x squared that you see here at all? No, it's the only one of its kind. Let's look at this one, x. Is there another term with x at the end of it? Which one is it? It's 2x, right? So we see that these are like terms. So we're going to circle them because we need to combine those like terms. And do we see another term that's just a coefficient or a monomial, right? It's only 1. It's just 8, right? Is there another number here? No. So what you're going to do is you are going to add these together. And we're going to change this from writing it vertically to writing it horizontally. So we do it in this order. We say, okay, we're going to start at the top. We're going to say the answer or the expression is going to be x squared. Then we're going to say, what's 4x plus 2x? 4x plus 2x is, just add 4 plus 2. 4 plus 2 is 6x, exactly. And then what about the number? The number is 8. Now technically, this is a quadratic expression, which means the quadratic is going to have a 2 next to the x. This is a linear term because if you looked at this by itself, and let's say this equaled y, this would be the slope right? It would be the slope, and that would be the y-intercept. So we call this the linear term, and this is the constant term, which means this is the number by itself. So we'll just go over this one more time. This one is called quadratic. Okay. This one is called the linear term. And this term is called the constant. Okay? So we'll get more into that a little bit later. But if I refer to this as quadratic term, linear term, the term with x, or a constant, see, now this has three different names. This can be a constant, this can be a coefficient, or it can be a monomial. So they have different names. So go ahead and get that down. Okay, so now what I want you to do is I want you to write down these two binomials being multiplied by each other. This is going to be x plus 3 and x minus 4. Okay. So what you're going to do here is you're going to follow the FOIL method. Okay. The FOIL method starts with f. So first, in order to multiply or distribute, you need to multiply the first term. So we're going to underline the x and the x. Those are the first terms of each binomial. So what is x times x? Remember, if it's x to the power of the invisible 1 and x to the power of the invisible 1, 1 plus 1 is 2. So here, the first terms make x squared. Okay. Then you're going to multiply the outer terms. Remember, the outer terms are going to be on the one that's farthest over to the left and the right. So we're going to start with x again, but now this is the outer term here. You're going to multiply by the outer term. So x and 4. Those are the outer terms. Okay, now, is this going to be a positive 4 or negative 4? It's negative 4. So when you see a negative and there is one negative, it's going to make the answer negative. A negative 4 times x, right? Remember, negative times positive is negative. So negative 4 and x make what? It makes negative 4x. Very good. Okay, now the inner terms. What are the inner terms? Do you remember? What are the inner terms? Okay, they're on the inside. So the inner terms, you're going to start with 3 and x, and you're going to make the distribute underneath. So what is 3 times x? 3 times x is... Put them together. 3 and x make 3x. That's right. Positive 3x. Okay. And then the last terms. Again, you're going to start with the last term here, which is 3, and multiply it by the last term here, which is 4. Negative 4. Okay. That's 3 times negative 4. 3 times negative 4. So what is 3 times negative 4? Negative what? Negative, I'm waiting. It's negative 12. That's right. Okay. So now we're going to get to the place where we have an answer. We're going to look at all the different terms. We're going to look at the quadratic term, the linear term, and the constant. Okay, so you will always have one set of like terms. Which one would that be? Remember what these are called? They're called linear terms. The ones with the x's, right? They will always be like terms. They're the only ones that are going to be like terms here. So we're going to circle them because when you have like terms, you want to make 2, right? If you have 2, you want to make them 1. So that's when you combine like terms. So again, we're going to rewrite this. This is vertical. Vertical means up and down. Everyone do this with me. Vertical is up and down. We're going to change it to horizontal. Horizontal means side to side, right? So you're going to start with x squared. Now we have a negative 4 and a positive 3x. Negative 4 and positive 3. Okay, are these the same signs or different signs? They're different signs, right? So we say different signs, subtract. Keep the sign of the higher number, and the higher number is 4. So 4 take away 3 is 1, but this is negative. So this is going to be negative 1x. And then the last term, which is the constant term, is negative 12. Okay? So that is your, when you multiply, this is the expression that you get. You get x squared minus 1x minus 12. Go ahead and get that down.